for the camera and the headset. And a little bit of sub money, because sometimes that's hard to come by to take them places that I can't squeeze after school hours because of daylight issues. And so we have been using those resources to do our own virtual vistas of the Ozarks. And so this is Wilson Springs, a property that's near and dear to my heart because even before it was open to the public, we had the opportunity to go out with professors at the university when they were helping survey the property, and got to get up and do some drone footage and some assistant mapping on the property. So it's just been lovely to see the property evolve over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Those students are now sophomores in college, I think, so it's been a while. And so I really thought, like, this is like, to me, really targeting the vision of the Ozark Society, right? Conservation, education, recreation. So we really tried to pick locations that really hit both the conservation and the recreational elements. So we're up to 12, I think today. We posted Logan Springs this morning. And so the kids go out, they use a 360 microphone to try to get really natural audio. I'll see if I can get to the Logan Springs. It was still processing. You'll really appreciate it. There's a part at the end that's pretty amazing. To me, it's like the version of the whale. It's going to be the whale this year, where the kids are in the headset and you know which one they're watching because they make a sound, they gasp. And then the 360 camera, and they're editing in Premiere, which is an industry grade editing software. I mean, thank goodness to National Geographic really led us through how to edit 360 video because it's not very user-friendly. And then all of it's ending up, is it linked here? No, it's in the next one, into a story map, which I'll go to in a second, that has all of the videos and descriptions of the properties and all of that. Next one, nope, go back. Did I link it? Oh, I did. All right, so here is the story map.
So how old are the kids?
6th and 7th grade, so anywhere from 11 to 13. The primary crews on this one are 4 6th grade boys and 4 7th grade boys with some assistants all around from some other classmates, but here is the map so you can kind of see where we've been so far. There they are, they finally populated. So our last 2 to add were Wilson Springs and Logan Springs. My stipulations to the kids has been we need to be able to drive there in half an hour from our school because we feel like that's kind of we're trying to promote them to get their classmates and their families to see themselves in these spaces. This might not be something that's a natural recreational point for them. So I told the kids half an hour, because that seems to kind of be a mental check, right? If it's over half an hour, we might not drive there. And that it has to be interesting to them. So they've been largely curating and picking the locations that we've gone. And then at each one, they kind of write a summation. It links to the property's website. So this one's with the Nature Conservancy, so they can get more information on visiting. And then it links into the 360 video.
Welcome to Logan Springs. In this location, you're going to see a path and a huge rock that welcomes you to the land preserve.
See if I can get it to increase its resolution. So same thing, you've got the So it was a very windy day. You could tell it was kind of cloudy and cool, and so even getting the wind on the microphone, we were just that whole idea of that feeling of being somewhere. And then entry, I'm trying to get, okay, so here's walking. trying to do a mix of sedentary and moving. Too much moving, you eventually start to get a little nauseous. So kind of a mix.
Maze of flat trails are spread across some 2 miles through the preserve. The trails cover small bridges and move through the grasslands too.
And I'm gonna skip to the end. At this point, it's actually me walking because despite constant warnings, 6th grade boys do not like to wear pants or jackets. And they were freezing. And I sent them to the car and I was about to walk back myself and then something happened and I was like, give me a minute. I'm gonna shoot
Pockets of wetland in the preserve are ideal habitat for waterfowl and shorebirds, including the geese which you see.
Oh, it's not. I think our video is frozen. Let's see if I can get it to load. Internet's struggling a little bit. Imagine geese have landed and they are startled by the crazy teacher with the camera. And I hate that it's not loading. They take off and they fly over me. That was what I was most excited about. I was glad I walked back out there. Let's see, will it play?
How do you allot time for the students to view these?
Right now, we're just in production mode and they're using their own class in my room for like feedback and beta testing and there they go. It's a little laggy, but
I thought that was a hunter letting go.
I know, we might need to clip that in a little bit. I think it's like me like trying to turn it off without being so obvious that I'm trying to turn it off.
Boy, that guy spoiled it.
The other goal was for it to be a real mix of things from kind of far out places to like Springdale, you know, so places that are close to them, places that are a little bit further out, so they can kind of recognize that environmental landscape doesn't have to be Antarctica. It's at the J.B. Hunt Nature Center. It's at Lake Springdale. It's right next to Sam's Club where maybe they already go sometimes to go shopping and they could go take a moment and walk out there with their family. And so what we're doing now, and the plan is, we finally got it on the calendar, I'll get to that in a minute, is we are doing the exact same thing as we did with Antarctica, hopefully improved. On May 13th, we're gonna use our gym instead of our library to be able to grow the project a little bit. And we're gonna do Expedition Ozarks. And so the kids have been inviting organizations from across Northwest Arkansas, offering them space during the event. The students will be unveiling their products during the event. Starting next week, my students who aren't working on the project will take on aspects of the event other than the VR. So if they want to make puzzles, if they want to do giveaways, if they want to design a photo prop, if they want to do an art piece, like they will all kind of be able to take their own personal interests and apply it. And they will be learning about the Ozarks using, just like my kids did with my VR last year, they'll be using their classmates as the starting point for their own contribution to the event. And so that's kind of the dividends that the wonderful equipment and time's been paying. And then just some other kind of things that the kids are working on. Students are wrapping up. I had a student last year start who's mapping out and updating a lot of information about horse trails in Arkansas and the adjoining states for the Backcountry Horsemen of America. We have a teacher in our building who's very passionate about that organization. and talked about just how difficult it can be to cipher through a lot of the material and understand where you can and can't camp or take your horses. So he's been doing that. And then another group of students is working with the director of the Hunt Learning Center, Highland Nature Center, to do a really in-depth trail map of the Ozark Highland Nature Trail. With a whole bunch of content embedded. The center gets a lot of inquiries about the ONHC as people come in and they don't really have much to give them. And I was like, surely there's a lot of information online. I think the problem is there's actually too much, and it's in so many different places, and a lot of it's still paper bound, which I can appreciate, but a lot of people are mobile bound these days and they want to be able to plan a trip or understand parking points and all that sort of stuff off their phone. So the kids are working on that as we speak as well. And they're calling their project Take a Hike. So and I think that is it. So
Brittany.
It is fun. It is.
Sounds wonderful.
Turn on the
Yeah.
light.
And
Which is, there's a lot of Tyson schools, it
Yes.
seems. Which one is Helen?
so Helen Tyson is pretty much right off the interstate and Don Tyson. So we're right next to Randall Tyson Recreational Complex, so the ball
Okay, yeah.
fields and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then down the road is John Tyson Elementary, and then there's Don Tyson.
yeah.
You mentioned that you didn't think people should go on vacations or something to Antarctica.
Yeah.
What was that about?
It's when we ported on our way back in Ushuaia, the number of cruise ships that were there was alarming.
Just the environmental impact.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the cruising itself is already a largely environmentally unfriendly activity, and then that is the channel is so narrow, and then we were lucky that Lindblad, they don't want to take you where other people are. So we had no itinerary before going. It is day of, and if they find out that someone's somewhere else, they don't tether you there. They go somewhere else. That's not the case for a lot of the more commercial cruise ship companies who sell these big trips on big ships, and some of them you don't even get off. It's just drive by, like you just view what you can from the ship.
I heard the same thing about the Alaska cruises, that the whales and all the marine
Right.
life completely rebounded and became normal again once the ship stopped making all that racket and everything else in the waters up there. So,
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
You made an interesting, when you started, I think you said the kids in your school are 70% minority or immigrants, and are they all, and then generally speaking, low income?
over 80. I think we're 84% low income.
Yeah, one thing I wonder about is, and you also said then that most of them go from the apartment to the bus to the school and back home the same way, don't get out in nature. Is that related to being an immigrant or a minority or to low income? Because I wonder if even low income people who grew up here, are they more likely to get out? Is it the immigrants who don't feel comfortable? Are you able to ascertain?
No, I mean, I think it might be a little bit of all of that. I think I think you don't know what you don't know, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't grow up around people or who value those experiences, who that's a recreational activity for you, you don't, it's just not in your purview. In the bus to school equation, our kids a lot of them don't even come from a household with a vehicle. So it's hard to say, go out and enjoy these locations if they don't even have that way. And a lot of them have parents who work shift jobs, maybe more than one shift job. So there is a luxury to it, right? To the time, to the ability. There shouldn't be, but there is. And so I see it even a little bit with my cohort that's going out to do it, that is a relatively new experience for the majority of them. And one that they enjoy. There's a lot of lingo, and just it seems in their own mindset, for whatever reason, I don't think they feel unwelcomed by it, but they don't feel natural in it necessarily. And so hopefully this is chipping away a little bit of that. The majority of my students are Central American, so El Salvador, Honduras, Mexico, some Dominican, and then my school, it has a large percentage of Marshallese. So, which is a whole other thing because it's a island-based culture. If they were home in the islands, they would spend a massive amount of time outside and in the water. And then we have the inverse of that here, where we're hoping to rebuild that connection, right?
Is there any way that those of us that are experienced hikers could be helpful?
I'd love that. Yeah.
Like, would your school take bus loads of kids to hike on some of the local trails?
That's definitely something we need. It's harder and harder to get out of the school building.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concern about time out of classroom, unfortunately, often it's referred to as a learning loss, which we know it is not, right? But you have to go through all the channels. Our 7th grade team started 2 or 3 years ago. It is now their official field trip in the fall. They take the students to Lost Valley. So for the bulk of our kids, that is the first trip like that they have been on. So we're definitely trying. A large part of this project is we want them to go with their families. We don't want school to be that connection because school ends, and we want that connection to continue. So it has to become a cultural, and so that is the goal, and hopefully, I know a couple of the students who have been out on these trips have gone back with brothers or sisters or their parents, and so I think that's promising, especially when you look at places like the Cave Springs Sanctuary or Wilson Springs, really magical places that are not difficult to get to that might already be on your path of travel anyways. Why not stop?
I can't read that list that you have gone to, those,
Sure.
It looks like 9 different places on the left of your screen. What are the places that you've gone to and have videos of?
Yeah, and I think we're missing a few off that list too. So, Clear Creek in Johnson is, as a stream team, our water assessment site. So we started with that one as practice and as a place that we kind of knew well. The Ozark Highland Nature Center, Lake Fayetteville, Elm Springs, the Steele Stevens Heritage Park that's down on the stream, Cave Springs, the Lower Ramble, another one where we try to the idea of an urban, easily accessible urban environment, Mount Sequoia, Lake Springdale, Lake at Atlanta, which my kids loved, which I had never even been to. And then missing off that, because I did this yesterday before we loaded it, would be Logan Springs and Wilson Springs. And I had never been out to Logan Springs either, and it might be my favorite. It was just purely
just the awareness of all those places for the kids, your whole class.
Yeah, and even the kids kept saying, springs, why are these springs, So then we get to talk about the importance of wetland properties and how early community settlement in the Ozarks was built around obviously a water supply, and what protecting those water supplies now, why it's important, especially with urban development. And we even got to have a conversation about pervious and impervious surfaces, which they do pervious in science in 7th grade, so trying to make all those connections seem relevant to the kids, so.
Well, thank you very much.